All right. Welcome everybody to Mental Health Awareness, our Monday podcast with Jaws Coffee Chat. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is October 30th, 2023. Have with us today Jennifer A. Whitaker. And of course, I'm Elizabeth Overkirsch of Oh My VA Admin Services. We always want to give special thanks to those great folks who replay our shows on their platforms. Marcus Hart of Transform U Media, Zach Clayton of the PACT channel, Jay Stoyan of the Disability Channel, and Lawrence Wingate of Wingate Studios. We definitely appreciate their support and participation. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our social media pages, groups, and YouTube channel, or wherever it is you came to find out about us. And real quick, before we get started in today's conversation, we want to mention our sponsor and express our gratitude to Stanley for supporting our podcasts. Please be sure to check out their website and see what all they have to offer, gifts and for others as well as for yourself. The link is in the description and in the chat. And thanks so much, Stanley. We greatly appreciate your support. More about them a little bit later in the show, but let's just get started. Jennifer, over to you.
All righty then. So welcome everybody. Today, which is October 30th, 2023, we are going to talk on this topics of stress and anxiety. They have a lot of ways that they are similar. I've even found through research as well as through talking to different professionals in psychology that they actually are in the same family, not to be punny, but they're so similar between the causes that's overactivity in the brain. So what caused the different factors that cause the overactivity to even the ways we have to deal with them, that's coping or reducing our workload or focusing on the moment instead of whatever's in the future. Stress through our day, even focusing on just today. We have to look at what are we doing right now? What is right now's priority? We can't look at the list is 50 items long and I gotta have this done by the end of the day. Because then it becomes magnified in our brain. And that's part of the science behind stress and anxiety. They're magnified. We make them out, whatever the situation, to be worse than they are. And they become detrimental in a way that could even be debilitating. So some people actually are on disability because of anxiety or inability to handle stress. What's interesting enough, I found that what I have always perceived for pretty much since I was 14 decades of my life as being stress and pressure, that's why I was not able to ever do well working under somebody else instead of self-employment, because I have so much pressure constant on my back and chest, and the figurative speaking, that I could never handle additional pressure from the outside, another person, or say nature, like a hurricane wiping out my house or something like that. Just whatever is the outward stress, I could not handle it. And I had everything from heart palpitations to chest pain and other things that could even signify something more medical than, say, mental health. But all this ties into where I was just telling EJ, I came to a point in the last week of July of 2023 to ask my psychiatrist if there's anything she could do, any kind of medication she could give me to help me be able to deal with this stress. And I told her that my Atarax, which was a take as needed anxiety medicine, would relieve it temporarily, but I feel like I needed it ongoing regularly and not just on an as needed basis. So she tried me on a very low dose of Buspar. And as more time passed, that last Wednesday of July and on into August and through the month, I became more productive while feeling a lot less stressed. And she said that she thought it really was working. It was serving its purpose. So when I saw her in early September, somewhere around Labor Day weekend, it was a work week around then. I told her how I felt improvements and my productivity went up so high. The number of hours I could work per week went up, and all these other things that was just saying like, boom, now you can all this stuff that you haven't been able to do. And I can do something I've never been able to do, which is working more than 12 hours. And I can have a list this long done, whereas somebody told me recently that what I used to take a whole week to do, I could now have done in half a day. And I don't feel stressed. So of course my doctor thought, well, this really is something that Jen needs and it's beneficial. And she was so excited. You know, she's probably trying to get me to go full time now. But anyway, so point is that's why she increased it, because she saw, oh well, Bloom, you're able to do all the stuff you couldn't do. Oh, we're on this, I'm able to do even more.
Superwoman, but you don't want to overdo it because then you'll crash and burn.
Yeah, self-defense, remember?
Yeah.
But I mean, how many people actually realize or even talk to those doctors to point out about stress? That, I mean, I didn't know there was anxiety until the Buspar just did all this magic wonders. And before then, I just thought I was always stressed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one reason I ended up unable to work beyond my restricted hours. That's extreme part-time. You can't even get a part-time job limited to that number of hours.
Yeah.
Or less. I mean, so how many people go through similar stuff like that and they think they're stress intolerant or unable to handle stress, and they forget to talk to doctors to realize you could have actually something, but it's not medical, maybe it's mental health related, but something is actually going on that can be treated and not an actual inability to deal with life, generally speaking, if not a job.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of the symptoms from ADHD that I have a friend who talks about that probably more people could be treated for without being associated with ADHD, but that help you stay more focused and stay less distracted and all the squirrel, kind of aspects. Which is one of the things I definitely have trouble with, is staying focused and staying on task. I wouldn't say I have ADHD, but that perspective of it, I'm like, oh, well, maybe that is some of what I have going on.
Well, but if you don't have hyperactivity, you could have ADD.
Yeah.
Because hyperactivity is the H in ADHD.
Right.
Is that they're not just distracted, but they're hyped up in energy, and like you can't go and sit down and be still.
Yeah. Mine would be, I guess you're right, more the ADD.
Right. Because I was going to say, you never seem hyper. You're always like calm and laid back. And I mean, sometimes you get stressed, but
yeah,
that's all of us. And it's not a condition, right?
Right.
But you may have something like ADD, but that's where people can get distracted, but they don't typically have behavior issues beyond just distraction and then try to go back to whatever.
Yeah, just trying to stay on task can be a challenge sometimes.
Well, and I've heard from some people with ADD that even remembering what's the task, because they say like there's like a TV changing channels constantly in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
So they're brains constantly jumping from topic to topic, and before they produce something like are productive in whatever way related to one topic, they're already gone to 5 other topics.
Yeah.
And I've been told that some of the best ways to deal with that is jotting down. Or even modern day, you could get like this otter I have. That's how I interview our different people that are famous that the books are about.
Mm-hmm.
I put it as an app on my phone, download it, and then hit record on the otter when I start to interview somebody, and it writes it down for me. It even edits it.
Yep.
Speaker 1, speaker 2, speaker 3, speaker 1, whatever. It even labels who's a speaker based on a number. But that's one way that, as long as you keep the memory open so it has less than a certain amount of memory space consumed, it'll always be free.
Yeah.
And that's one way that people who have all these thoughts going can cope with it, right? Use it to record. And here's this idea. Okay, and it writes it for them. Stop. Okay, next idea. Okay, record. Stop. And that's where you can use some of our modern day AI technology to even further, not cope, but what's the word? Accommodate. Whether it's accommodating for yourself or someone else in the workforce. I mean, there are tools like that if you know about them, we're actually becoming more and more capable of working. I think about how we can do remotes. And now one of the reasons that I was deemed unable to work was for the fact that I can't drive, so I don't have reliable transportation. And that wrote me off almost every job. Because they all require reliable transportation. So I'd have the degree and everything else. And then, oh, do you have reliable transportation? Well, I can Uber. And they're like, no, that's not reliable. Okay, you're disqualified.
Yeah.
I mean, see, the world's changing because look at that right there.
Yeah.
And what exactly am I doing? I mean, you don't know if I'm at the coffee shop where I just saw a client, or if I'm in a doctor's office where I just saw my doctor. I mean, you don't know where I am, but I am working.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where another topic that relates to people with mental illnesses is it's getting harder and harder to get on disability because of all these ways that you can now work in spite of what used to be considered disabling.
Yeah.
Like the lack of transportation, right? Well, now somebody filing for disability would deal with, well, why can't you do an online job, right? Or especially if they have some kind of education or degree. I mean, then it's like, well, so why can't you do, IT or whatever, something, right? Because there's so many jobs that now can be done remotely. That's before you had to be in some kind of office, so transportation mattered. That it doesn't matter in certain ones now.
Yeah.
Even
But
though there are
the
yeah,
mental health aspect of the disability or filing is now going to be the stronger point because, well, like I know someone who could do a lot of things, but because of the stroke, it's the mental side that he can't keep up with the IT or the software development or the computer programming, stuff like that, that he had been able to do.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying people aren't disabled anymore.
Oh,
I'm just
no,
saying
no, I'm just saying it's going to
the
become
sys-
more focused as to what they call disabled. Whereas a physical disability won't necessarily have the same impact that it has had in the past.
Oh yeah, but definitely I wouldn't say stroke is mental health, but it is disabling, but it's not mental health, but still that there's various categories of disabilities where there is mental health, like the anxiety, ADHD, ADD, some cases, paranoia, schizophrenia, all kinds of stuff like that. It's under mental health, or it's something more on the medical. That's what you're talking about with the stroke. That's medical. That's not something that has to do with their emotions. It can impact their emotions, but stroke itself is something with the heart. It's physical and medical.
Yeah. This person it's affected more his mental capacity than his heart.
Well, that
Because
makes some more medical being neurological. Because like mental health is the emotional side. You know, like where sometimes I get really frustrated and then I go see my doctor and I'm not frustrated anymore over the same thing.
right.
I mean, it's a you know what I'm saying? Mental health has to do with the emotions. Like how I talk about how my conditions are all neurological and mental, which all have to do with the brain. It's because neurological is a physical disabling factors of the brain versus mental health is the chemicals that have to do
Right.
with behavior and emotions.
Right.
So I think you're kind of crossing some,
Probably. I'm
yeah,
crossing terminologies.
right. You're on the mental health, you're talking about neurological stuff.
Yeah.
So
You're
I just
right.
don't want listeners to get confused because
Like
stroke is
me.
not a mental.
Don't want the listeners to get confused like I'm confused.
You said it, not me.
I admit it.
Yeah, but I mean that's it. It really is a factor to consider that medical can cause mental health conditions.
Sure.
Like I have a friend that was a retired police officer. He was a retired detective from the Houston Police Department, and he was always joking, and he was always teasing about even the fact that I'd be depressed or something, which was I always thought his way of trying to cheer me up, right? Laugh until you feel better.
Yeah.
And most time it did, but it would initially be like, further down, it's like, okay, fine, I got your joke. And then I'd start laughing with him.
Yeah.
But he had a tactic. But what I find out now is that here he's never had anything even in the mental health field. But I mean, he did in his job working with, crisis, they're called 911 for mental health crisis, but not as an actual patient. Well, then he had so many strokes and ended up so many different times in the hospital. Well, it's his a heart attack. Anyway, something like that with the heart. And one of the first time it happened, they had to keep him 6 weeks in the hospital. And you know what happened to him there? He got depressed. And then suddenly
Yeah.
he realized what depression is and that it's an actual condition and not just somebody being super sad and making a big deal.
Yeah.
And so who do you think he called for help? So his wife, my best friend, Miss Linda, and they go to my gym as well, and the same Starbucks I go to. And anyways, we got a lot of hangouts. That's how we originally met.
Yeah.
But I've seen her time to time and even texted her asking her to tell some jokes that I make up to Mr. Al, the guy.
Yeah.
And I pray over, in my prayer Bible group, I pray for him and the group prays for him. But it's just so amazing where people like him, even if they work with it, if they themselves don't have the condition, they don't understand what's so detrimental and disabling, quote, about just being in a bad mood. Like I know people think it's just a bad mood when we're anxious or when we're stressed or when we're, depressed, all kinds of things we go through. And they think we're just in a bad mood or just our character is someone who's irritable or our character is someone who's negative because of depression puts us thinking negative, right?
Right. Well, we'll take a little break here at this point as we take a breath, and just wanted to mention about our sponsor, Stanley. They were founded in 1913 by inventor William Stanley Jr. And have been helping generations since for adventures. They were built on invention, innovation, and inspiration with a timeless spirit that complements your wild imagination. Over 100 years later, a steady stream of products continues to honor the Stanley legacy, keeping your warms warm and your colds cold. Stanley is there for all your adventures so that you can make the most of your world, whether you're scaling a mountain or climbing an elm tree in your own backyard. They will be with you on your journey, just as they have been for generations past, helping to build a more sustainable, less disposable life and world, while opening the door to an awe-inspiring future. So again, be sure to visit the link in the chat and in our description and check out what all they have available.
Anything else about these cold seasons we've got now? Today we dropped from 80s yesterday to in the 40s today.
Oh, wow. That's a big jump.
Yeah, that time to pull out a Stanley warm, making my coffee warmer.
Yeah. Yeah, my daughter was on a camping trip this weekend, and it was a little bit warmer than the first one she went on earlier in October. So, yeah, definitely have a lot of outdoorsy stuff going on this time of year.
If you watch baseball, speaking of outdoorsy, where Texas is in the world, what's it called?
World Cup.
World Cup, yeah. It's playoff between, I think, is it Pennsylvania or Illinois, but somewhere in the north versus the Dallas. I forget what their mascot is, but
I'm not familiar with them.
yeah. But basically, Texas has two teams: the Dallas team and then the Houston Astros. And the pre-playoff was the Dallas team against Houston team, so Texas had to play it. So the Dallas won it, so now Dallas is the one playing in the World Cup.
Great. Just put the link in the chat, so be sure to check them out. https://shopstyle.it/lowercase l/lowercase b0 It's easier just to copy it from the chat or in the description. All right, let's get back to this conversation because we were going pretty strong on that.
Yeah, so on the conversation, I gotta say first, I only have about 10 or 15 more minutes before we need to round up. Because today, speaking of health, I've got like 3 or 4 doctor's appointments.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of appointments in one day, which has got to be stressful.
It's, well, you know, when you spend your whole life going through that, it becomes defined as normal.
True.
See, and that's one of those factors where no matter how well I do on this abuse bar, that I still have all these medical things, these medical conditions. That's why I still have to see 16 doctors.
Wow.
And
there's a reason I pray for you every week, girl.
But yeah, but that's where the point of the debilitation is. That's why I can't work full time, is because I have all these doctor appointments to fill my schedule, that no matter what I'm capable of by skills, I'm not capable of by available time because of medical stuff that calls for attention.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't attend to medical, my ability to work won't even be there.
Right. Exactly.
But I mean, four doctor's appointments in one day, without even mentioning to have another one on Friday and another one tomorrow. And anyways, get the job pretty much every day, every week. That's part of the reason I'm always mobile and doing the podcast from different places. I'm like, well, I've got to be this place this time and that place that time.
Yeah, exactly.
But then that goes back to part of the mental health is understanding that we need to delegate, what's the word? We need to delegate ourselves to dedicate to doing what the doctors say. It's not just taking the medicine, it's communicating with them when it's not working by telling them what you're experiencing. And they can tell you what's the diagnosis and what kind of medicine you should be put on, or maybe should be adjusted or otherwise. But something I've learned is that if you don't open up to the doctor with what you're truly feeling and experiencing, they can't truly treat you.
No,
Because
they can't.
without the data of knowing what's the crisis, the emotion, the experience, they can't say this is the right med for that experience.
Right.
So if you give them a different experience, like let's say when I'm anxious and I say I'm depressed, it'll get worse because it'll lift my mood and my mood's already up there at the peak.
Right.
And that's why I think a lot of people with mental illnesses don't take on as their own responsibility. It's not just take the medicine, which a lot of people even struggle with that, but being open to the doctor and not to fear judgment, but to know the doctor's on your side. They want you better. They want you to have a more enjoyable life because your mood is pleasant and enjoyable and stable, healthy, not constant up down and not stuck deep in the darkness and so forth. But if you don't open up to your at least psychiatrists and therapists, they can't make you better.
Yeah.
You'll always have some kind of mood issue if you don't tell them what you're truly going through and let them come up with what's the label, the diagnosis, or if you already have somebody diagnosis, which one is off balance for them to say this is the medication adjustment we need.
Right.
I mean, because think about how this whole experience of making me more calm and stable was just by voicing the fact that I had so much stress constantly. I mean, people especially don't talk about stress to psychiatrists.
Yeah.
But they know
That's just part of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's nothing anybody can do about it. That's just life.
See, and that's why I wanted to hit this one today, because it's really interesting, but I think it affects a lot more people that maybe like me, where they experience this stress, that is really something medical that can get treated. At least under the side of psychiatry, if no other medical form. But I've told you before about like when I used to have epilepsy, that it was an overactivity in my brain.
Mhm.
So my brain was always stressed.
Yeah.
But we got to a point we were able to do something about that. That's why earlier on, when you first started working with me, it's been calmer. And over time, I've got even more and more calm as we progressed. It's parts of my brain healing from the brain surgery. It takes 5 years to recover. And then another part is this stuff that I'm doing with other doctors outside of epilepsy that's calming my brain of other abnormalities that are overactivities. But that one was simply by just complaining that I was stressed. Who complains about that? That's just, I don't know. I think it's a hit. It's a big hit because it's like you said in the little humor there. People think it's just a part of life. I don't know anybody that's even complained enough to say,
Yeah.
I want my stress dealt with so I don't end up with a heart attack.
Yeah. It just feels like that's just the way the world is these days.
It's the stigma versus what I'm saying. That could be an actual condition that's just conveying itself different than whatever you find on Google. That's the trend of how people experience it. And who knows, it may actually be anxiety that a huge percentage of our population have that don't know they have it. I mean, based off my experience with the Beast Part doing the magic. So, I mean, what's to say it's not even life-saving to do something about that because of stress that induces heart problems? How many times do you hear somebody who had a heart attack or has blockage in their heart that they had to take a stress test? Why?
Yep.
Because it's linked to high stress.
Yep.
So part of the analysis is, do they have high stress, and meets whatever standards is a minimal to be at risk of something with the heart. And if they don't have that high of a stress, fatal stress test, they're not considered at risk for whatever that relates to the heart. So I mean, there's a real meaning in the way they say stress will kill you.
Oh yeah,
Because
definitely.
if nothing else, it'll lead to a stroke or heart attack or something else. If not, say, what about you and I with anxiety? What if our anxiety just went out the roof? We eventually like punch something or who knows what, right?
Right.
Because it turns into frustration that can later turn into anger, that can later turn into what you get.
Yeah.
Just it magnifies.
But
And it's
also
all
that stress relates not just to mental stress, but it becomes a stress on all the different parts of your body. The
right,
heart, the muscles, the tension in your shoulders, the everything that's all connected.
which is the physiology side of it, the physical matter.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to hit that as a key point for our listeners to look at stress, to assess themselves, to see, do they feel they are under high stress? Or maybe a loved one, if they're not the one that, is experiencing it. But whoever's at somebody, help them, motivate them, encourage them to go talk to a doctor. If they don't have any mental health conditions, they may need to start with a primary care, a general doctor that does just general medicine. But if they are somebody who already sees a psychiatrist, go to the psychiatrist. You don't know if it's something that could be treated. And like with me, it got rid of chest pain in addition to the feel of being constantly stressed. So like you're saying, there's an actual physical side to it, that I have the physical pain in my chest. But whenever I went to the emergency room, they always like, "Oh, we gotta get an EKG." And I'm like, "My heart's
It's
fine,
chest
leave me
pain.
alone." It's just pain.
It's chest pain. You got to do an EKG. Oh, there's nothing wrong on the EKG. You must be fine. It's all in your head.
That's pretty much what they were like. That's pretty much where they went. They just didn't look at the psychiatric side of it.
Yeah.
The psych side, generally, like based on my understanding, cannot be analyzed through any kind of testing. I mean, you have to just do trial and error of a medication for whatever those symptoms match.
And ERs aren't equipped to do that.
They're not. They're only equipped in the medical, which goes to the whole reason that we even have a mental health field. Whether this is the psychiatric hospitals, it's the rehabs, it's the partial hospitalization programs, it's the outpatient doctors and psychiatrists, like psychiatrists and therapists. There's emotional and life experiencing to the person symptoms, but there's no universal medical symptoms.
Yeah.
Like the chest pain and the palpitation and the other things that a medical doctor could detect without just looking at your emotions and behavior. They could listen to your heart and know.
Yeah. All right. Well, that sounds like a pretty good stopping point, I think, don't you?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Do you have any other announcements coming up? Things that I know we have something with November 6th. What we got on November 6th?
Project Die Hard, PDH Mission Monday. A new podcast will be launching, and you will find it on Jaws Coffee Chat channel, especially on our social medias. And we also have going on with Project Die Hard, not just the podcast starting 6:30 Central on November 6th, but I got some news today from them.
Ooh, tell us.
Pick me, pick me. So we are opening Bob Rush, which is a base
A military
on,
base?
yeah, well, not like a military base is where you have to be in the military, but it's one where veterans can go to hang out or to like just to get coffee, socialize, watch TV, some
Oh,
kind of
okay.
just day place to just enjoy time.
Excellent.
And it's also a place where they can get uh, resources for free housing for the homeless, free food for the hungry. They have housing but are hungry, and everything else. And so the grand opening is on November 28th, and it is in McKanda, Illinois. We are looking for volunteers for Bob Rush for veterans in McKanda, Illinois. If you're interested in being a volunteer, email volunteer@projectdiehard.org. That's volunteer@projectdiehard.org. We also are growing. So here at Jaws Coffee Chat, I don't know the details, but John is launching a new podcast show. And I know at least one of them is supposed to start in November.
Excellent.
Plus, for those of y'all that listen to the Jaws Christ Talk or Christ Talk special, those were paused during the month of October. And starting November 1st, all of those shows with John Tar and them and various guests will be returning. We just gave some people a month off and a little break with all the time that they dedicate and volunteer for our mission, the Jaws Coffee Chat mission. But that said, you can expect John and Alan and a lot of the other regular people to be back starting November 1st, as well as the possibility of a new podcast. We don't know the date or which show, but we have discussions of everything from medical, like medical with psychology mix, to one about eczema and understanding that's more than just dry skin, to be a voice for those who have it. We also have another once a month special coming up that's somehow related to Christianity, but I don't know the details.
Okay.
So without going in full list, there's plenty of new shows to be coming out, and we don't know the timeline, but stay tuned. Subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media, wherever else you find us, and you'll soon hear when which is launched.
Excellent. Lots of new stuff coming up. Definitely want to stay in touch and keep an eye out for all of those. So before we head out today, one more time, just one last thing. Again, so thankful and grateful for Stanley's generosity and support of our podcasts. Their commitment to providing quality products at great prices have been invaluable to us, and we're so thankful for their help. We hope everyone takes advantage of the great deals they have going this season and enjoy the gifts they have to offer. So until next time, which will be next Monday, 2:30 Central Time, 3:30 Eastern, and I believe we have a special guest coming up next week. So be sure to join us on November 6th. And again, as Jennifer mentioned, subscribe to our channel or the page where you found us, our YouTube channel, and keep in touch. We'd love to hear your comments in the chat or in the description below. And until next time, we wish you a productive and enjoyable week.